What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today, and the road to predict all 136 FBS level college football teams this summer has now reached Annapolis, Maryland. Happy Independence Day, a happy 4th of July to everyone out there watching this video. And can we call it tradition now? We're diving on into the Armed Forces teams today, kicking it all off with possibly the most exciting one of the bunch in the Navy Midshipmen. My name is Nate Bope, otherwise known as Tailgate Nate, and I want to thank you all so much for clicking on this video and for helping to support the channel. If you would like to help support the channel even further, then please do what it says right below me. Hit that subscribe button, and while you're at it, you might as well ring the bell. Turning on notifications will ensure that you don't miss an upload during prediction season, especially not one of your favorite team or teams you can root for however many you want. I am a sports media professional, got the degree on the wall to prove it, and I just started my new job in the industry. So if you want to see all the cool stuff I get to do while still being up to date what goes on this very YouTube channel, you can go ahead and give me a follow at TailgateNate29 on Twitter or X, whatever your preference to call the platform, and Instagram. Feel free to even email me, tailgatenate29@gmail.com. Thank you all so much for supporting and interacting with me or the channel, however you may be doing so. Tailgate Nate got dressed up today. Look, it's a red, white, and blue tie, and we're ready to go for Independence Day predictions. We are moving on to the Navy Midshipmen and the head man in Brian Newberry, a team last season that throughout a lot of last year, a lot of people were considering, hey, can this team make a run to the college football playoff? Well, after that loss to Notre Dame, things fell apart a little bit, but they beat their rival Army. They won their bowl game against the Power 4 program, and they are carrying all sorts of momentum to be one of the G5 favorites to reach the college football playoff this upcoming season. How do we do preview predictions here on the channel? Well, we are going to go through a roster overview where the offense is going to be over here to the left and the defense is going to be over here to the right. At the end of the video, we are going to go through the Navy football schedule. I'm going to give it a game-by-game preview and prediction, and this video overall will tell all you fine people what I think about the Navy Midshipmen here in 2025. But before we do get started, some things to turn your attention to right down below me. Some numbers, if you'd like to pay attention to. Returning production does sort of show, again, well, I literally tells you what it does, shows the production returning on the team. Numbers are according to ESPN, and normally I say they do factor in portal additions up to a certain percentage. You won't have to worry about that with any of the teams we're talking about today. And then recruiting and transfer portal ranks for the class of 2025 are according to 24/7 Sports. Again, no transfers hardly ever come into these armed forces teams. Navy doesn't have any. I don't think Army or Air Force have any, but of course you'll find out in the videos later on today. 132nd in recruiting. Teams not known for their recruiting either, but they are such fun styles of football to watch as we dive on in with our first one of the day. Your offensive coordinator for the Navy Midshipmen is Drew Cronick, and let's talk about what I think coming into the year is one of college football's most exciting players to watch, and that is the senior quarterback Blake Horvath. Out of the three Armed Forces teams we'll be talking about today, that Navy is the only one that returns their quarterback from last season. Here's what he did: 1,353 yards and 13 touchdowns on 4 interceptions, or I should say 13 touchdowns and 4 interceptions on around 60%, 57.6 if you want to be more accurate, percent completion percentage, and the leading rusher on the ground. And 176 carries, 1,254 yards, 17 rushing touchdowns, and led the Navy team among qualified rushers in yards per carry. 7.1 for all you math nerds if you didn't already do that math on your calculator that I know you have standing by, math nerds. Blake Horvath is one of the most exciting players in the entire country. You didn't watch Navy football last year? Watch a game this season. A, Navy's got a lot of big games. B, the team overall is worth watching. But when you watch Blake Horvath, man, is he such a fun player to watch. And he, much like Bryson Daly at Army last year, is just a little bit of a different player when you're talking about these armed forces teams, because again, they don't play the style of football that most other teams throughout the country do. It's a triple option. It's led by the run. They hardly ever pass. 1,000-yard passers are hard to come by with these armed forces programs for the most part. Blake Horvath did that last season and did it at a really efficient rate too. Yes, his run game is what every defense is going to want to key in on. But when he drops back to pass that football, he can beat your defense, your favorite team's defense, just as effectively as some other quarterbacks throughout the country. Now, it's not going to be at the rate that you're going to see other offenses throw the football. Sure, absolutely. This team is going to run the ball almost 600 times this season, just like they did last year. but Blake Horvath is such a fun player to watch. He makes the quarterback position so much fun, and he is going to be a dynamic weapon under center for the midshipmen this upcoming season, much like he was last year. As far as what this offense is built off of, as we all know with these armed forces teams, it's that backfield. Well, Navy is going to be losing some depth in the running back room this season. Daba Fofana and Brandon Chapman are both going to be gone. They each had right around 250 yards. In fact, Chapman had 250 exactly, and Fofana had 251. 5 rushing touchdowns between the two of them there. But you do have to look at what Chapman did in the receiving game as well, because he was the team's second leading receiver, 257 yards and 4 receiving touchdowns on 18 catches last year. So you are losing a couple really big pieces there. Fofana was a guy that didn't really catch many passes last year. In fact, I'm looking at the stats. He only caught 1, but you're losing 2 really key depth guys in this running back room. However, you get your biggest name in the running back room back. Running back, slot back, you can call him whatever it is you want, but Eli Heidenreich, and I apologize if I said that last name wrong, he is going to be coming back. Sorry, dropped my notepad, aka my phone. Now, was not even the team's second leading rusher last year behind Blake Horvath. He was the third, 444 yards on 3 touchdowns, got 65 carries, but again, you do that math, that's 6.8 yards per carry, so it was pretty efficient with the touches he did get, but was the team's leading receiver. Yeah, it's rare to see a 1,000-yard passer with some of these programs. It can be even rarer to see a 5,000-yard, or not 5,000, geez, that would be crazy, a 500-yard receiver. Heidenreich got close or I should say he exceeded that last season. In fact, he got close to 671 yards and 6 touchdowns on more than double the catches than anyone else on the team had last season. He is such a fun weapon and is the biggest part of the offense besides Blake Horvath and what makes the engine run. Alex Texa is also going to be coming back. He was that second leading rusher and the leading tailback last season. 568 yards, 8 tutties, and 124 carries last season. Amazing run game pieces. Again, they both have a good impact on the passing game as well. Texa was the team's third leading receiver with 229 yards and a pair of tutties last season through the air. And what's better, you do get your lead wide receiving weapon. Not going to really play much as a slot back, but Nathan Kent, more of a true wide receiver type player, 222 yards and a pair of touchdowns for him last season. You're going to get him to come back to this passing game. And overall, when you take a look at the offensive line, yeah, you're going to be losing a couple of solid guys, but there is great talent. Navy is really, really well coached up front. They were one of the best offensive lines in the country last season, and much like usual, they should perform really nicely here in 2025. So what have we learned about the Navy offense? Watch out for senior quarterback Blake Horvath, guys. He had a really good season last year. In fact, you could consider it a monster season. I'm telling you right now, I think you're in for a treat watching him in 2025. I think he could have an even better season than he did last year. He's got plenty of talent surrounding him. The offensive line's also going to be one of the best units in the country. The Navy offense is going to be a pain to try to defend against this season, mark my words. And speaking of defense, let's talk about how Navy can make it a pain for other teams to move the football with defensive coordinator P.J. Volker. Now, the midshipman defense can see improvements from last season. It was not the best defensive unit. In fact, you could argue it's kind of what held Navy back from possibly making a real true run at the end of the season to get into the college football playoff. 51 points were given up in their first loss of the season to Notre Dame. They gave up 35 to Tulane in another game there as well. And there were a lot of moments, even in some wins for Navy, like the 56-44 win against Memphis, where the defense was just not all there. They struggled to defend some of the simple things. They allowed a couple of really big explosive plays. The Navy defense is just a unit that can see a lot of improvements this upcoming season. Might also help there too in knowing what word is actually supposed to be over there, not stopping overall improvements, and again, just stopping the overall flow of opponents while again improving the little things along the way. So what's some of the talent they lose or return from the front lines this season. Let's start with the defensive front. Well, you're going to be suffering a pretty big loss there on the defensive edge. Your sack leader from last season, 6 sacks and 49 tackles, did force a fumble as well. Justin Reed is gone and off this team, used up his eligibility, and he will now be serving our country. Many leaders, though, with good sack production are going to return, and some of the top tacklers on this defensive front are still going to be coming back. Luke, he is going to be coming back. And again, apologies for pronunciations. Landon Robinson, yep, you're going to be getting him coming back this season. Griffin Willis, Chagrin LaFond, and a lot of other really good experienced depth pieces for this Navy team. So yes, Justin Reed, very big loss. You're going to have to find someone to at least try to fill those shoes, but you got a lot of other guys up front that are going to create havoc on opposing defenses. But the defensive front, one of those main areas where Navy needs to see some improvement defensively this season. Your top two tacklers in Colin Ramos and Kyle Jacob. Boy, how big were those players for Navy last year? Two triple-digit tacklers. Ramos, 129 of them, 3 sacks, 2 pass defended, and Jacob, 1 sack and 100 tackles, and was second on the team in interceptions with 3 of them while defending 2 passes on top of that. Also forced and recovered a fumble last season. That's just a huge blow to the linebacker room, and quite simply put, again, it's a linebacker room that still has to see improvement with how it played overall last season and stopping a lot of things and helping out that defensive front, even with the 2 triple-digit tacklers. You got to find some guys to fill those roles and fill those holes this year. It's going to be a really, really tough time to, I think, try to find guys that are as dynamic as that. But Navy, again, like all these armed forces teams, fill in talent pretty darn well. So we'll see what they're able to look like in the linebacking unit. Your top 3 secondary members are all going to see an exit, and you get some really big losses in that there as well. Most notably, probably, is Deshaun Peel. He was spectacular as a cornerback for this team last season. 5 pass defended, had 5 interceptions, and 2 pick sixes. You look in the safety room, Ryan Lane is now with the Jacksonville Jaguars, good enough to go to the NFL. 70 tackles for him, 4 pass defended, 2 interceptions. He also had a pick 6 last year. The secondary was lethal for Navy last season, and it's got to find a lot of guys to keep that lethality in check. However, you are going to get a really, really good piece coming back. That's Andrew Duhart, and then a lot of other pieces are going to fill in those remaining gaps. Kenneth McShan, sorry, is supposed to be that next lead there as well. He is coming back to play what they call the striker position. He had 34 tackles and is the leading member of that secondary to come back from last season. My apologies for the pause. This is a secondary that, again, has got to fill in a lot of pieces, but has still got some good talent in that room. A younger punter is going to take over, but Nathan Kirkwood, the place kicker from last season, is going to come back. Kickers are people too. We got to show them some love. A Navy team that, guys, yet again, I think is going to be a really tough unit to stop offensively. But there are some defensive questions. You're trying to replace a lot of big name talent that gave you a ton of production from last season while still trying to see an improvement in this defense from last season, while again losing some really important parts from last year. So the defense, we'll see. I think it's going to see some improvement, and again can still have potential as a pretty strong unit, but that's where the questions lie on this Navy team. Offensively, though, I think it's going to win them a lot of football games this upcoming season. How many, though? Well, that is what we are about to find out right now, because you take a look over here, it is the Navy 2025 football schedule. But before we dive on into this, let's look down below me here at some odds from our good friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook. No, not me telling you to go place your money, just gives you some context onto how good the odds makers think Navy football is going to be this upcoming season. And again, with Group of 5 teams, we don't look at their odds to win the national championship. We simply look at their odds to make the college football playoff, as in most common practice, there's only one spot up for grabs. So right down below, you look at plus 430 odds to win the conference. That is second, only behind Tulane, plus 1,600 odds to get to the college football playoff. Really not that bad of a mark at all. And that over-under total is at 8.5. A very respectable number. The odds makers see the talent that is on this team. They see what they did last year, and they know how high Navy can reach. You're now going to see how high I can think Navy can reach this upcoming season. You get your first two games at home, and I think they're both going to be wins for you. VMI, I don't think Navy's going to have much trouble with. This game here against UAB could get interesting in some aspects. UAB is a team that I think a lot of people expect to improve this season, but I was never a Trent Dilfer fan. I didn't necessarily love the hire. I don't love him as a collegiate head coach, and I still don't. 3-9 last season. UAB has really struggled, and again, while I think there are some pieces that can give Navy trouble, just too much firepower for this UAB defense to handle. That's going to be breaking in pretty much an entirely new starting 11 this season. Nine transfers are projected to start here for UAB this upcoming season. I think that's going to be a win for Navy. And then on the road at Tulsa, guys, the Golden Hurricane, is unfortunate as it is to say, might be one of the worst teams in the American Athletic and could be one of the worst teams overall in the country this upcoming season. I just don't think Tulsa is going to be that good. Navy should have no trouble with them on the road. You then do get a bye week, and because again of the circumstances, Navy does play Army in a week 16 game. Again, the Army Navy game after all the conference championships. So Navy gets a plethora amount of bye weeks this season. This is one of them. And then you got to go play the Rice Owls, who are not going to be an easy out. However, Rice is going to be losing a lot of important pieces from last season. You're going to be losing EJ Warner at quarterback. You're going to be losing your starting running back, whose name is escaping my mind. Couple good wide receiver pieces, some solid defensive pieces, but you do have a lot of experience coming back on the defensive side of the ball, especially up front. I still just don't think it's going to be enough to be able to slow down what this Navy offense wants to do. And I do think Rice will succumb to this Navy pressure, and Navy will be able to beat the Rice Owls. Air Force was a massive disappointment last season. Massive. You just don't see Air Force play that style of football very often. You just don't see them play as bad, and you haven't seen them play that bad in the Troy Calhoun era. Guess what? They're going to be better this season. A lot of returning talent is coming back, unlike a couple years ago where you were replacing just about everybody and their mother on the football field. You're going to be having some good returning pieces coming back, especially Cade Harris and Dylan Carson as some of those slot backs, running backs, fullbacks that are going to be taking the reins of the running game, just like they did last season. Air Force is going to get back to running the football. That defensive front is as experienced as any in the entire country, and it could be one of the more talented units in the Mountain West Conference. And I do think it can give Navy some fits here. I do think that is a defensive front that's going to be able to, and obviously, again, Air Force has seen Navy every single season. This is going to be a game in which I really do think it comes down to how much the Navy defense can control the line of scrimmage, because I do think the Navy offensive line will win its battles. The Air Force defensive line will win its battles, although I think the Navy offensive line and the Navy offense in general wins more of the battles against Air Force defense than the Air Force offense will win against the Navy defense. And even if that got confusing, let's stick it to the Navy offense versus the Air Force defense. I think Navy will win more of the battles. The offense has just got a ton of experience and really good weapons coming back. Navy is going to be able, I think, to win that game. So you're starting off 5-0. I think you start off 6-0 with a road win against the Temple Owls. Temple is a program that's trying to reassert itself, that's trying to build itself, and now it gets Casey Keeler coming in here. So very interesting head coaching hire. I like Casey Keeler, did a very good job over at Sam Houston State, and now is going to try to build Temple back up in the American Conference, the heights that they have not seen since the Matt Rule era. Well, Jay Ducker coming in at running back is going to be a big help. Evan Simon is not a bad option at the quarterback position at all, coming over from Rutgers a couple of seasons ago. Your defense is going to have a lot of experience coming back on it. And so Temple should overall see some improvement this season. It's not going to be enough to beat this Navy team, especially in year one under Casey Keeler trying to implement that system. I think it's going to take some time. Watch out for Temple maybe in a couple years, depending on the job that Casey Keeler is able to do. But Temple, as of right now, is going to be a win for this Navy team. And look at that, 6-0. Your first half of the season is flawless. You get your second bye week, and then you get to come back and play a team at home in Florida Atlantic that is also going to be breaking in a new head coach this season, and I think it's a win for Navy overall. Anyway, Caden Veltkamp, He is coming over to play quarterback for you, though. And look at who the offensive court, or not the offensive coordinator, the head coach, mind you, is Zach Kittley. You remember the offenses he ran over at Texas Tech, even going back to Western Carolina, Western Kentucky with Bailey Zappi. Yeah, that's the guy who's going to be the head coach at Florida Atlantic now. Caden Veltkamp is from the Hilltoppers, so he's pretty familiar with the kind of system that Zach Kittley likes to play, because Western Kentucky, even without him, still ran a style pretty similar to that. And you could see the offense explode. You got a lot of good wide receiver pieces, some solid running back pieces, but I just don't know if the defense is going to be up to standard here. I think the offense can give the Navy defense a good battle. I think Florida Atlantic is going to score some points here. I just don't think they're going to score more than Navy. Quite simple as that. That's how you win and lose football games. I think Navy wins against Florida Atlantic, even though I think the Owls can be a little bit of a surprise this season. Again, you'll have to find out what I think when that video comes around. At North Texas, this is a sneaky game. This is a really, really sneaky game because North Texas always battles. 6-6 last season. That's where North Texas usually hovers around, right in that area on the edge of bowl eligibility. You are going to have a transfer quarterback coming in Reese Poffenbarger. We'll see what he can do at the quarterback position for North Texas this season. On top of that, your wide receiver room is going to be pretty young. Your running back room is going to be fairly young. Your defense is breaking in a whole ton of transfers. Eric Morris, I think, is a really good head coach, and I think North Texas probably is a team you're going to see in postseason this season. I would watch out for it. This is going to be a really tricky one. I think North Texas have got a lot of good pieces. There are a lot of good intangibles and good overall talent that is on this team. If Navy doesn't play their best, and I think especially if they don't bring the defensive heat, watch out. I think North Texas is a tricky team, and North Texas can get you, but I do think Navy should still be able to pull this one out on the road. Here's one I don't think they are going to win. Much like I predicted last season, I think a lot of people predicted last year as well. Navy, I mean, just take a look at the rest of their schedule. Sure, there are some teams that can give you some battles in certain points. You're not going to face a complete unit like you will with Notre Dame all season long. And these last 4 games here for Navy are really, really tough. An 8-0 start is very much so in the cards. It's exactly what I'm predicting, and it's going to end right here. I mean, now you got to go on the road and play the Notre Dame Fighting Irish with Jeremiah Love, CJ Carr, a really talented wide receiver room, and possibly one of the best defenses in the entire country. Sorry, Navy, you're just not going on the road and getting that win. And that's not me trying to be mean. That's just me calling it how it is. Notre Dame is a far more talented team. You saw how the game played out last year. And while I think Navy can make that one a little bit more competitive this season, I don't know that it finishes too far from the way it did last year. Notre Dame is just a really talented team. They're a national championship contender. Wouldn't it be something, though, if these two teams met again in the college football playoffs? Certainly a possibility. Navy loses that one to Notre Dame. And like I said, this last 4-game stretch is brutal for the midshipmen. However, I do think they do fairly well with these final 3 games. I think they lose one of them, and you'll find out which one that is. Obviously, I've just spoiled this one. It is not South Florida. However, South Florida can give Navy some trouble because Bowen Byron Brown is one of the best quarterbacks in the G5 ranks. He's a really, really good talent, and you got a lot of really good transfers that's going to be coming into the offense surrounding him. However, I don't think the defense is going to be able to do what it needs to do in order to slow down this Navy offense. That's why I have South Florida winning, and I think Navy is going to lose one of these 2 games. Well, I'll tell you right now, I have them beating Army, which means I think they're going to lose to Memphis. Memphis has got a lot of changes, sure, but a lot of really talented transfers come in offensively and defensively. It's going to be a rebuilt group for Ryan Silverfield, but if I've learned anything from him as a head coach, he develops talent really, really well. He's a guy that can go get it, and Memphis is a team that's been there, done that. It's a tough environment to play in. They're usually one of the best teams in the American Athletic. I feel like this year will be no different. I think Navy will trip up on the road against Memphis, but they beat Army. Army's going to be without Bryson Daly this year. Army's going to be without Kanye Udo, and I just don't think that they have the dynamic pieces that they did last season to be able to take advantage of this Navy defense, and Army couldn't even beat Navy last season. So Navy wins America's game for the 2nd year in a row, and they finish off the year 10-2. Will that be good enough to get them into the college football playoff? We'll have to wait and see, right? You got to wait and see what the group of 5 room looks like, and all of that. But Navy is going to be one of the best G5 teams this season. I think Blake Horvath could be overall one of the best players, at least most exciting players in the country to watch this year. I think Navy football going to be a lot of fun. I do have double-digit wins for the midshipmen this year. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Remember to play hard but tailgate harder. Happy 4th of July, and we'll be back with another Armed Forces prediction in just a little bit. Goodbye.